Afghanistan's election crisis continues. A massive vote audit is still underway. When will the troubled nation have a new president? And will Afghans accept the results? Hello, I'm Arun Naidu, and this is The Heat. In April, Afghans went to the polls to decide who would replace Hamid Karzai as the new president of Afghanistan. Two candidates, Abdullah and Ashraf Ghani, made it into a June runoff. But after initial results showed Ghani leading by a wide margin, Abdullah made fraud allegations and demanded a recount. That is now underway as a team of international observers tries to complete an audit of 8 million votes. Meanwhile, President Karzai says he hopes to leave office next week. Can the stalemate be resolved by then? We begin with this report from CCTV's John Gilmore.
It was supposed to be a shining moment for Afghanistan's young democracy as millions cast their ballots in April to decide who they wanted as their next president. Former Foreign Minister Abdullah finished first in a field of 8 candidates. But without the 50% majority needed to win, he was forced into a June runoff with former Finance Minister Ashraf Ghani. Then, crisis. After preliminary results from the runoff showed Ghani leading by a big margin, Abdullah accused him and the current Afghan President Hamid Karzai of rigging the vote. Abdullah demanded a recount, while Karzai and Ghani denied the allegations.
Our commitment is to ensure that the election process enjoys the integrity and the legitimacy that the people of Afghanistan and the world would believe.
With tensions rising and fears of civil unrest, the United States stepped in. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry brokered a deal in Kabul with the candidates.
We are grateful for the assistances for the people of Afghanistan, as well as the sacrifices that your people have done alongside the Afghans.
The deal called for an audit of the 8 million votes cast to be overseen by the Independent Election Commission of Afghanistan and a team of international observers, and the formation of a unity government with a prominent role for the loser when the final results are announced. But the vote audit has been highly controversial too. On Wednesday, Abdullah withdrew his observers, claiming the process is not stringent enough to catch fraud. The uncertainty caused by the election impasse is hurting Afghanistan's economy, with worries about a financial crisis. And the Taliban, who were ousted from power following the U.S. invasion in 2001, are again making military advances as the summer fighting season continues. Meanwhile, the United States, which had hoped to pull most of its troops out of Afghanistan by the end of this year, has developed plans to stay on until an orderly withdrawal can be achieved. John Gilmore, CCTV, Washington.
Joining me now is Omar Samad. He is a former Afghan ambassador to both France and Canada. He's also a former spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Kabul. And joining us from Kabul is Adila Raz. She is the deputy spokesperson to President Hamid Karzai. Welcome to both of you to the show. Ms. Raz, let me start with you in Kabul. An outcome from the election is taking a long time. The vote audit is now being brought into question. Is this likely to go on much longer?
First of all, thanks for having me on the show, and I'm glad that Ambassador Samad is there too. Well, coming into the technical part of it, how long it's going to take, I think it's beyond my scope of work in terms of understanding. It's the Independent Electoral Commission that will be able to answer this question. But in terms of the hope and what the Afghan government wants, and specifically His Excellency President Karzai, is that the election results should be announced as soon as possible, and the process should be done as soon as possible. And we hope to have the new president and the new government by September 2nd. That's where we stand, and that's what we're working for, and that's in terms of the Afghan government, the preparation for the inauguration and is on its way, and we're all prepared for that.
Ambassador, what are you hearing?
Well, I'm hearing that the audit process is continuing without the representatives of the two teams, Ghani's team and Abdullah's teams. The UN has made it clear that they want to go on while there's observation from independent Afghan observer teams as well as international monitors. This is not very good news because everyone wanted the teams to be involved, but as you know, about 48 hours ago, Abdullah's team put a halt to their participation because of what they call as inadequate vote invalidation processes. And so they're waiting to hear back from the UN. They had put many demands and proposals to the UN several weeks ago. They say that they haven't heard back definitively on whether those criteria will be accepted or not.
Mr. Reyes, when we have a delay of this kind of uncertainty, surely it must impact on political stability in the country. Even the security of the country must be called into question right now. I mean, how concerned is the government about this delay?
Well, the concern from the government is pretty high, and we have stated this many times. Because the delay not only on the security aspect but also on the economics as well as just general and regular life of individuals in this country has been negatively impacted by the delay of the election results being announced and the auditing process being completed. So it is a concern, it's a severe concern on the government side as well as the public, Afghan people, because I think for the first time in the history of this country, after more than 30-40 years, people came out to vote, and they voted in much enthusiasm and hope for the future. And I think in their part, their participation was pretty obvious for a better future, for a brighter future. And I think the part that the election results should be announced is something that everybody has been waiting for and looking forward. So the concern part, how much the Afghan government is concerned, I think our security entities and institutions, including the Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Defense, as well as NDS, they have announced it that security has been negatively impacted by that, and it's not a surprise, because usually what happens is the enemies of the country, when they see the political instability within the country, they try to take advantage of that and try to, as much as they can, and influence and bring instability and increase their attacks. But luckily, as you may have heard from our Ministry of Interior as well as Ministry of Defense, the preparation is there. They are ready to defend the country and work hard to maintain peace and security. But still, regardless, we do see the negative signs of this delay.
So, Ambassador, there you have it. You know, Afghans trying to exercise their democratic rights. We got to the situation because of these accusations and then counter-accusations of fraud. You yourself didn't mince your words on this. I mean, you said what is happening in the country, you call it a massive and brazen conspiracy to defraud the Afghan voters. Those are really tough words.
Yes. I think that there are two sides to this issue and where we stand today. On one hand, you have a process that has gone on for too long. It's very unfortunate. I don't think anyone wanted this to happen. You have allegations, claims on all sides. You have a election process, or election commissions that I think have proven not to do their job as was expected by the law and as well as by the Afghan people. The Afghan people, as Ms. Ross said, were defiant of all threats that existed and went and voted, and that is why their vote has to count. That is why anyone trying to undermine or anyone trying to sabotage this process and disrespect the vote of the average Afghan man or woman has to one day answer to this. And this is not an acceptable situation. What we have seen very clearly, and this the international community admits it, is a case of massive fraud. And the UN agrees with it. The US government agrees with it.
Is there evidence of this?
Of course. There's evidence of it. And if the process goes on according to the laws and according to the agreements, I think that we will have credibility. What we are looking for, what the Afghan people are looking for, is to have not only a prompt resolution of this process, but they're looking for credibility and legitimacy. The next president, whoever that may be, has to be seen and viewed as a legitimate leader who can exercise power and who can govern. Otherwise, the next person will have many issues and inability to govern the country. That is not a good recipe for the future of Afghanistan. There are economic problems, there is a security threat that exists. At the same time, we need to make sure that the political process moves according to what is fair and just in terms of the voters' vote. Now, I want to add that there's a political process on the side going on between Ghani and Abdullah. And I hope we can discuss this because that is also very important aside from the technical aspect of the election.
Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Ms. Raz, I just want to get back to what the ambassador was saying about there being massive fraud in this election. I guess the Afghan government wants to see a transparent process. If there has been fraud, will we see evidence of that fraud? Will it be exposed? What is President Karzai doing to resolve this situation, diffuse the tensions around the election?
I think it's pretty clear. President Karzai's position from the beginning, from the early start of the election process, his commitment towards a free and fair election, a legitimate government, a transparent election, a government that, and a president that's going to be empowered through the votes of Afghans. And I think it's pretty obvious that right now where we stand in terms of timing and then the processes that has gone, that it was not only in words. I think it has been proven President Karzai's and Afghan government's commitment towards a free and fair and transparent election. And that's why I think when on one hand, I think what we have to all agree that Afghanistan, this democracy is pretty new and the experience itself is new. So with no doubt the challenges will be there, and even personally I think even in the upcoming elections in this country we will go through difficulties and bumpy roads. What we should not give up is hope and as well as our commitment. So what it is that true, there were issues, as you may have pointed out, that both teams didn't agree, and I do not want to speak on behalf of the both teams, or I do not want to speak on behalf of the Independent Electoral Commission, IEC. They have their own voice. But on behalf of the Afghan government, I think what the government tried to prove is, we saw it during the election day, both rounds, is the security forces coming out and trying to maintain security for Afghan people to come and vote. And on the political side, the president trying to facilitate the possibility of this election taking place, and his commitment for a transparent as well as democratic transition. And I think it's pretty obvious right now. We do have these conspiracies even before existed, that when before the first round of election and during the Loya Jirga for the BSA, I think everybody was thinking that the President Karzai will come and will change the constitution and will extend his term, and that didn't happen because it was true he will never do it. And then when the first round of election happened, people never thought that will take place, and as well as the second. I think when we come back in terms of what the government wants and what President Karzai wants, he definitely wants, and the government as well, to have a legitimate government, a government that's the president and the new government that has come into power through votes of Afghanistan. Every individual had the right to vote for that. Okay. And in terms of how much he had put his efforts, I think that's pretty obvious, and his commitment and as well his legacy for a transparent as well as democratic transition.
Okay, so Ambassador, we have a situation now where, as Ms. Raz says, they want an outcome that is democratic, but we are in a stalemate right now. You have said the winner-take-all system is not applicable to Afghanistan. Why not?
It is not, unfortunately, because the system is flawed. The electoral system is flawed. I think that all Afghans expected the system to produce a result that was as credible, and I'm not talking about perfection, as credible and as acceptable and as legitimate as possible. And we found out after the first round, even though there were signs before that, indications before that, but after this first round we found out that Unfortunately, in the runoff, there were some major errors and flaws in the system. So this means that in the future we hope to fix this. But for now, on the technical side, we are at a stalemate. The stalemate is now such that the UN agreed that there was a problem. Secretary Kerry went twice and said it very openly, yes, there's a problem. If one of the candidates had not stood and taken a position on fraud, then we would probably have had another crisis in Afghanistan as a result of a not so legitimate leader emerging.
Right.
But all of this now is, now we are at a crossroads where the political track has to resolve this issue while we leave the technical side of it in the hands of professionals.
So you've got the UN handling that, but there is space here for some kind of political compromise between the two sides.
It seems that there is. There's continued talks between both Mr. Ghani and Mr. Abdullah. There is hope that they will find the right formula on how to share and how to be partners. It's going to be a partnership. And the reason why I stress on the fact that winner takes all is not applicable to Afghanistan is if you look at society, if you look at the way politics has been played in Afghanistan, if you look at the challenges that we face, I think that it's very important that we have a solid, well-based partnership between the two leading candidates, the front-runners, but based on, again, the tenets of the Constitution, yes, but based on realities on the ground as well. And that would help Afghanistan. It would also help the international community handling the future missions in Afghanistan.
Ambassador Samad, Adil Raz, stay with us. We'll talk a lot more about this. But we are going to take a break right now. Afghanistan, the situation there, the future, coming up, more coming up in just a few moments. Stay with us here on The Heat. Welcome back. We're talking about the Afghan election, its outcome and the future. With us is Adil Raz. She is a spokesperson for President Hamid Karzai. She joined us from Kabul. And with me here in the studio is Ambassador Omar Samad. He is the former Afghan ambassador to Canada, as well as France. Thanks to both of you for staying with us. Ambassador, let me start with you this time. There was a report in the New York Times recently that there could be what the New York Times referred to as a soft coup in the making. The powerful ministers with ties to the security forces would take over in Afghanistan as some kind of stopgap measure. Is that likely?
It might be an idea in the minds of a few people in Kabul. I don't think that it's very realistic. I don't think that it's practical. I don't think that it would solve any issues. I think it would make it more difficult. And I think that it will be a tipping point if that happens for Afghanistan. It will make it less stable. And if you look at the Afghan people's expectation, they want to see a just and fair resolution to the elections. I don't think that they are looking forward to a soft or hard coup.
Adil Raz, the writer of that report in the New York Times, the journalist, was Matthew Rosenberg, who was asked to leave Afghanistan shortly after that article was published. Why was he expelled?
Well, in terms of the legal reasons and legality of what the state found against him, I'm not going to speak. That's going to be the Attorney General's office. But in terms of, as a government spokesperson, and in terms of the article that he wrote and the consequences that article might have had for Afghanistan, is that it was baseless and it was not accurate, and it was not, it didn't even exist in terms of as a conspiracy. So it not even a realistic plan, but nothing even in terms of such an idea even being existed among government officials. And I think that's what the Afghan government felt more concerned towards, something that didn't seem to be realistic, true, and absolutely wrong, being published, and in such a critical and sensitive time while Afghanistan is going through, and it would have had a negative impact in the public opinion, and that's why the state found in the national interest to prevent and take a legal action towards him.
Ambassador, let's get back to the situation concerning the election and its impact. What kind of an impact is this delay in the outcome of the election having on the country's security and especially on the country's economy? Afghanistan's economy is not in great shape. In fact, there's no growth at the moment.
Yes. As Ms. Ross indicated earlier, the impact is significant, both on the economy and government services. The government itself is almost dysfunctional at this stage because everybody is busy with the elections and the politics involved behind elections. I think that we also, there's a sense of unease about the Taliban being active in about 14 or 15 Afghan provinces at this time. Everybody sees this as the Taliban and their backers inside and outside the country trying to take advantage of this opportunity that has presented itself as a result of the political tension that has existed. And they want to see an end to this. But the Afghan forces, I have to say, have done an amazing job of trying to prevent the Taliban from capturing and holding on to territory. And so a lot of credit goes to the Afghan army, police, and other organizations.
Right. Ms. Raz, when we talk about the security situation in Afghanistan, of course, we have to talk about the U.S. presence, U.S. troops being in the country there. There is a timetable, 10,000 troops right now through the end of this year. That'll be halved by the end of next year. Is Afghanistan going to stick with that timetable? Because the Americans are saying there is a possibility that the troops may remain in the country for longer than that period if the situation warrants it.
I think any decision in terms of the troops, U.S. troops staying in Afghanistan, it's a decision that will be made in coordination with the Afghan government, and that would be involved with our security officials as well. So at this stage, I think I'm not in a position to speak and make a statement, but I can absolutely say that any decision in terms of date being defined for how long and beyond which date, it's going to be a decision, mutual decision between the Afghan government as well as the U.S. forces.
Right, Ambassador, let me ask you about that. I mean, Afghanistan is supposed to sign a new security pact with the United States. Is that now on hold?
It's on hold because President Karzai has obviously taken a position on not signing the BSA, the bilateral security agreement with the U.S. That has put on hold as well the NATO agreement with Afghanistan, which means other countries joining the U.S. in a post-2014 Afghanistan. This has had a very negative impact on the economy, on security, on popular psychology overall. And now the two candidates have both pledged to sign this agreement as soon as they come into office, whoever comes into office. And I think that people are looking forward to that. Now, if this crisis, this political crisis continues in Afghanistan, one of the victims, one of maybe the BSA, this agreement, if it goes beyond a certain timeline, and I think that this agreement is endangered.
Does it then become a unilateral agreement with the United States doing what it needs to do?
Well, the United States over the last few days has indicated that if the BSA is not signed on time, mostly because of logistical and operational issues of getting the troops and the equipment out, that they will look at other options. So the interest and the desire on the U.S. side is to continue the process of signing this agreement. But the Afghans have to sort out their issues first.
Right. You mentioned NATO. Let me go to Adela Raz and ask her about that. Adela, NATO holds a very important meeting in Wales. That's just coming up in a few days. That's a summit of all NATO countries. Afghanistan will be represented there. Who's going to be representing Afghanistan? What is the message that Afghanistan is going to take to NATO? NATO has had pretty deep involvement in Afghanistan over the last 10 years.
Well, in terms of representation from the Afghan side, I think the position of the current government is pretty clear, and especially President Karzai. He had said it very clearly that he would not participate in the upcoming NATO summit and upcoming NATO meeting. He would not participate, and he hopes and he wants the new president to attend that meeting. It is with no doubt, it's a very important and critical meeting for the Afghan people and as well for the Afghan government. It could be current and as well as the future government as well. So that's why the presence is absolutely important and necessary to be there from the Afghan side. And so the letter which His Excellency President Karzai sent back to the NATO in response to the invitation stated 2 points: that he will not participate because his position in terms of the security agreement with the BSA with the US is still the same, and those conditions have not been met, and until those are not met, he will not sign the BSA. The second part, in terms of who is going to go to the meeting, the statement was that it should be the new president to attend the meeting. And there will be, the bottom line, the answer is there would be a representation from the Afghan government side, but not His Excellency the President.
Okay, Ambassador, very briefly, please. We're running out of time. What about the Afghan people in all this? I mean, look at this process. I mean, don't they need some closure to this? Will they be willing to accept a winner when that winner is announced, or is this process already tainted?
Yeah. No, I think that there's still hope. I think that one needs to be optimistic, cautiously optimistic. I think the Afghan people deserve a fair outcome to this. And I think the Afghan people have demonstrated and proven the fact that they have embraced democracy and that their vote has to count. The clean vote of the Afghan nation has to count.
Ambassador Omar Samad, Adela Raz joining us from Kabul. Thanks to both of you for being with us. And that's it for this edition of The Heat. We'd love to hear from you, so please send us your questions, comments and story ideas to theheat@cctv-america.com. And to continue the conversation, join us on Facebook @CCTV America. I'm Anand Naidu in Washington, D.C. Thanks for being with us.